Hello, everybody. Welcome to this morning's webinar. Good morning to most of you. I think if you're coming from the States, I believe that most of you will be maybe not just waking up, but definitely going through your first or second coffee of the morning. So today we're going to be talking about the Electronics Design Dream Team, which is a collaboration between Altium 365, the Requirements and System Portal, which is an application inside Altium, and Duro, which is a PLM connecting service. So today I am joined by some very nice guests. Louise, if you can go to the next slide. I My name's Andy, and I am the product marketing manager at Altium, or a product marketing manager at Altium, looking after the requirements and system portal. But I'm joined here today by two guests that both have a wealth of experience in the field of engineering and also use that experience to create their own software solutions to make the lives of engineers easier. So I'm with Louise Lindblad, who's the co-founder of Valispace and the VP of product at Altium, and Michael Corr, the CEO and co-founder of Duro. Louise, maybe you can introduce yourself in your own words too.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Andy, for the intro. And hi, everyone. Nice to see you. As Andy so nicely put, I'm the one of the co-founders of Valispace. Valispace is a requirements and systems engineering tool. And Valispace, well, was a startup and was recently acquired by Altium, which means that we are integrating our application into the Altium 365 ecosystem. So for you, those of you who are aware of Altium 365, Valispace has now become the requirements and systems portal, which is an application on the A365 platform. And a bit about myself, about my background. My background is in satellite systems engineering. So I used to be a satellite engineer and actually build the hardware. And I started Valispace from this pain that we were feeling when we were designing these kind of complex hardware systems that, well, we used a lot of Excel files and Word documents. And I always had the feeling that these kind of tools that we were using were very old, very outdated, and not very suitable for designing these kind of complex systems. So we wanted to make something that was really better for engineers and easier to use and connected different kinds of engineers and different kinds of data into one application. And that's where Valispace was born.
Awesome. Thanks, Louise, for the background. And Michael, how about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, everybody. So we started Duro because we saw a need in the market for a more modern and automated hardware data management platform. A lot of the legacy PDM and PLM systems out there, while very powerful, we found to be overly complex and too manually intensive, which is prone to human error and lots of mistakes. And as a result, often required a lot more overhead or extra cost to ensure all the disparate teams across your hardware company had the right content, the right CAD files, the right bill of materials, right sourcing information. And we just saw this amazing innovation coming out of the software industry where agile workflow principles and APIs are becoming much more prevalent, really could do a lot of that heavy lifting for people. And so we saw a nice opportunity here to more modernize and centralize PLM systems and make it a native cloud platform that really empowers people to focus on what they do best, which is engineering hardware products, and not have to spend so much time actually managing the CAD and BOM information. And so what makes us different is we come out of the box with existing industry standard workflows, part numbering systems, revision management, change order management. We have quite a range of CAD integrations, obviously requirements management integrations, ERP, MES, you name it. And if we don't have something that you want, we have an API. You're always welcome to extend our platform to meet your own needs. And then just a quick background about myself. I'm actually an electrical engineer, and I was an Altium user for quite some time, spending about 15 years designing products, everything from telecom equipment to drones to wearables. And so it's a nice, opportunity to come back around to where I started working with Altium again. And the motivation for starting Duro was, again, I saw so much inefficiencies in the industry and always worrying or losing sleep whether the manufacturers were using the right files I sent to them. And there wasn't going to be any production mistake because of a human error. And I just saw there's too much stress and too much cost, and just something had to be done about it.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like both of you have made some great solutions based on pains that you feel that you felt at the time. And Michael, with your background as an electrical engineer and Louise, you as a satellite engineer, I think we probably have a lot of the bases covered of engineers, and I'm sure that the people attending are either going to fit into one of these categories as well. We're also joined with someone else from Duro, Tom. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit too.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tom Sowers, a software developer and electrical engineer at Duralabs, and I work on the integrations team and specifically the integration with Altium.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to today's session. So let's have a quick overview of what we've got planned for you today. And I mean, the main purpose for us being here and of course for you guys being here and watching this as well is to demonstrate the connection between Duro and Altium 365. Okay, as well as the our new requirements package in A365, which is the requirements assistance portal. And essentially, we'll be going from design to production with a continuous flow of data. But before we get there, we're going to do a quick high-level overview of Altium 365. I imagine many of you watching are already aware of the platform. Then Louise is going to give us an introduction of the Requirements Assistant portal. Michael's going to introduce Duro, and then we'll have following a demonstration that shows how these three separate elements get connected. Okay, so then after the demonstration, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A. And guys, if you do have any questions or anything you'd like to share as we're going through, please leave questions in the Q&A tool in Zoom, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. So let's get into it. What is Altium 365? Now, I imagine that this image here of electronics development or maybe engineering just in general is going to be something that resonates quite well with a lot of you here. And what we found is that common workflows are that engineers share data and feedback across email, shared drives, spreadsheets, Jira, and many numerous tools. It's quite obvious that the implications of time here and delays are quite big in such a laborious and time-consuming process with many points of communication. But there are also security and IP protection issues here too. I mean, when you email your design info to someone, they can share it with anybody. You have no real control of where they could end up. So Altium 365 fixes these problems by having all your design data in one clear solution. It's an electronics development platform meant to remove data and collaboration silos. You can run your entire hardware development process on one digital platform. And you can see here we start with requirements, pushing all the way through to manufacturing. Your libraries, bombs, and designs are connected, as well as your requirements, and always working off the same data model. Changes to designs automatically get reflected in the BOM, and your procurement team always has the latest information. You have your schematic and PCB revisions stored under version control on the same platform, and they can be opened, viewed in a browser by anyone with the right access level. Now, in a nutshell, that was Altium 365, but we're here today to talk about the electronics design dream team, as we've mentioned. And that's the connection between requirements, Altium 365, and Duro. So, as you will see in the demo today, electrical engineering projects using Altium 365 can create and manage requirements, connect them to designs and ECAD tools such as our own Altium Designer, create bills of materials, and have bi-directional flow to Duro for enhanced product lifecycle management. And Louise, maybe you can say a little bit more here about the connection between requirements, ECAD design, and parts procurement that exists in Altium 365.
Sure. As I mentioned in the beginning, so former Valispace, say, is being integrated as, or has already been actually integrated as an application on A365, which means that there is the requirements and systems portal, which is a native application. It's a primary first-class application on the Altium 365 environment. I'm going to show this a bit later in the demo, how you access it if you are already using Altium 365. But not only is there an application that is dedicated to requirements and systems engineering, but we also have built this integration to connect to the different apps and the different tools in your Altium 365 environment, like the ECAD viewer and the BOM portal, for example. And why is this important? It's because we are bringing that missing piece, right? The requirements that describe what your product is supposed to do, or what are your the performance metrics, or the targets that you're trying to achieve with your product. We're bringing that context into the actual detail design world. So both for having the context when you actually do the design, so that you actually design for the right thing that you have in mind, but also to be able to verify that what you actually did design meets your initial requirements, right? So we have that connection now natively on the platform, which means that traceability of requirements will be present across your whole development life cycle. So it's very exciting to see that we have now launched this officially, and that it's a part of the Altium 365 ecosystem.
Yeah, nice. And I guess that takes care of the design and development stage of electronics building. But Michael, why should anyone here care about connecting this to PLM? What's the big story here?
Well, as many people know, each of the disparate teams, electrical team, mechanical team, procurement, they often have their own tools, perhaps their own workflows. Yet there is very few, if any, products that are just comprised of one discipline. And so everyone's content has to eventually merge together to create the final manufacturing package that gets sent to the contract manufacturer or your manufacturing team. And so think of Duro as that normalizing function, where it's the central repository for all data associated with the hardware product. It can coordinate across all the different teams, ensuring consistent part numbering, revision, naming conventions, what have you, so that when the final package is sent to the contract manufacturer, it's much cleaner, it's easier for them to consume, and ultimately leads to fewer misunderstandings, or production mistakes. And so PLM is that connector across all the different tools that one would use, and not just CAD. Again, requirements management, ERP, MES, vendor integrations, all that information can be connected and centralized into Duro.
And then, so if there isn't this push to Duro and the pullback, this bidirectional flow, what you're saying is that one of the biggest problems here is human error, manual updating causing issues and incorrect data.
Exactly. So there's not just a manual effort to migrate data from one system to another, which obviously has its own risks and overhead, but also the inconsistencies. So if you put yourself in the shoes of a contract manufacturer, they're switching between various customers day in, day out, which all have different schemes, different naming conventions, different part numbering systems. And so the harder it is, or the longer it takes for them to adapt and learn your conventions, the more likely they're going to make mistakes, or at a minimum just create delays because they need more time to understand it and process it. And so one thing you can do to assist in that process is just create uniform and consistent data, numbering systems, revision labeling, workflows, naming conventions, cycles, all that. If it's consistent across all your different teams, helps guarantee that the manufacturing cycles will be short and less prone to mistakes.
Awesome. So I guess that's in a nutshell what the electronics design dream team is, and shortly we'll be taking a demonstration, and seeing this in action. And guys, I believe that this is going to be fully live. Is that correct?
Yes, we're going to do it right in front of you.
Perfect. So let's just talk a little bit in more detail then before we get into the demo about the requirements and systems portal. Louise, maybe I can hand it off to you and you can share some more background.
Yes, I already mentioned that the requirements and systems portal is an application on A365, but to dive a bit deeper onto what actually you can do with the application, right? So it's an AI-powered requirements and systems engineering tool. And the purpose is to be able to manage your requirements, but also manage your high-level system design and connect the two together. So that's one of the benefits of having a system like this, is that you can actually start having your requirements, but also your high-level system design, and kind of do the zigzagging that usually happens between them. And also connect everyone that is involved, both in electronics development and in mechanical CAD, right? So the requirements is not only for electronics, but in general requirements for your whole product development.
Nice. And I know that you've been doing some research about what the current landscape is like for electronics teams with requirements as well.
Yes, for sure. We usually ask this question. We've asked this in several webinars before, and also in some surveys. And the results are very, very similar all the time. So we always ask what is the tool that is being used in your company for requirements management. This particular survey was done was an in-app survey in Altium Designer. So this was targeted to electrical engineers, and we had almost 2,000 participants in the survey. And the results are pretty clear. You can see here that more than half of the engineers, they actually use text editors like Word, Excel, Google Docs, etc., or task management tools like Jira, for example, to manage their requirements. Both of those tools are, I would say, good to start with, or when you have a few requirements, but they quickly become, when your project grows and when your requirements grow and when you start having these updates and manual updates that you need to send by email, it starts to become a bit unmanageable. And this says a lot of where the state of the industry is today on what tools people are using. There are only 10%, if you see here on the bottom, there are only 10% of people who actually use specialized tools like JAMA or DOORS or even Valispace for requirements engineering. And this obviously leads to, like, if you don't use these kinds of tools, this leads to a lot of problems, like, as I mentioned, manual updates, not knowing what has changed by whom at what time. You lose this kind of traceability of those changes, and the collaboration between teams become very, very difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, even we just saw that 10% of teams are using specialized requirements tools, and maybe they're taking requirements a bit more seriously. But in the context of electronics development, this still causes some issues, doesn't it?
Yes, for sure. I think the problem is not only that there is no formal way of managing requirements or no traceability between the requirements themselves, but there is also a problem of actually connecting those requirements to the design and to where those requirements have been implemented and to where they have been verified or are going to be verified, right? So even if you use tools like JAMA or DOORS or Polarion, there is no direct link to the schematics or to the PCB designs or even to the mechanical side of things, right? And that's a problem, because you need to be able to connect that. You cannot work with requirements completely separate and not connect it to what you're actually working on, what you're actually doing, right? What you're actually building. And the other thing is that these requirements are usually not are usually just text, right? So usually I would say dumb text and without any smartness behind it. And one thing that we do in the requirements and systems portal is that we parameterize those requirements. So you can use the values that are inside, the performance metrics, etc., to actually set up these automatic verifications to continuously verify your products as you go along in the design process.
Okay, well, let's maybe take a look at some more of the special capabilities that the Requirements Assistant portal has before we will show them in the demo later too.
Yes, exactly. So there are a few things that have been developed or have been enhanced for electronics development as we have been transitioning from the standalone application to being part of the Altium ecosystem. And a few of those things is, well, I already mentioned this, but connecting the requirements to the actual designs. So basically being able to place your requirements on the schematics where they have been implemented and also verify them directly from the designs itself. So the engineer that actually did the design can then verify also the requirements that were associated to it. And then we have the parametric requirements that I already mentioned, which allows you really to do this continuous verification and set up these continuous verifications to be updated automatically. When something changes on the design, you will know if your requirements are within the bounds or not while you are designing. You will have full traceability, so you will ensure that every design decision can be tracked to a certain requirement, or that every requirement has been implemented correctly in the design. And the last part I just want to highlight is that we do take advantage of what we call AI-assisted engineering. So we have a few capabilities that I'm going to show a bit in the demo that help you actually with AI to improve, for example, the quality of the requirements, the finding consistencies, and to really be an assistant while you work with the requirements so that you can get your job done faster.
Awesome. Great, Louise. Thanks. I think that was a nice little teaser before we go into the demo later. Now, Michael, maybe we can talk a little bit more about Duro as well.
Yeah, so Duro has really focused on companies that are trying to disrupt their own product categories. What Duro really allows to do that other predecessor PLMs haven't is be able to move fast. Again, because of the out-of-the-box capabilities, a lot of the streamlined workflows and automated data entry and validation, it's really set up for success for companies that are starting new products or trying to move fast to beat their competitors to market. And so where we tend to gravitate to are companies in the space sector. We have companies building satellites and rockets on our platform. We do industrial robotics. We do autonomous vehicles, and even some IoT and consumer electronics. But really where we shine is in more progressive teams who like that concept of a software for hardware tech stack and using Duro as that cornerstone on which they can connect either Duro provided connectors and integrations or build their own on top of our API.
Nice.
And so the value that Duro provides is simplicity and centralizing all the information in one place. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it excels at normalizing the content across the different teams, but also what it does inherently is make it transparent. And so kind of the topic of this whole webinar is historically each of those teams, while they may have a lot of value and powerful tools, the content they're creating is often siloed unintentionally because of the difficulty of extracting that information or sharing it across teams or platforms. And Duro really breaks down those barriers. And so by making it easy to centralize this content, it also makes it easy for any team to access other teams' information seamlessly. And so it creates this centralized historical record of everything that transpires from the design to manufacturing of your product. And so some teams use it as full audit trails for compliance reasons, obviously for accountability, or to go back if some issue arises, they can easily root cause, well, when was this change introduced? What was the context of it? And how do we correct from there? And other things that we also do differently is a very tight integration with supplier and vendors. And so you can trivially get access to costs and lead times for off-the-shelf and custom parts. And so a lot of customers really value that because it allows them to do more with their PLM and not necessarily require them to purchase a full ERP for basic procurement operations.
And you're also plugging into quite a lot of tools.
That's correct. Yeah. And so these is just a small sample of many of the integrations that we already provide. And so, of course, we have all the major CAD integrations, the requirements management. We integrate with project management tools. So if you still are using Jira or Linear, you can integrate those tasks into Duro to show up in the components and change orders. A lot of customers love our Slack integration, so you can be notified as users make changes in their Duro platform. We integrate with QMS, ERP, a handful of MES solutions, and quite a range of different platforms. And as I said earlier, while we do provide many of these integrations ourselves or partner with these companies to do so, if there's something you want that's not on the list here, or you want to modify the existing integration, great, go ahead. We provide an API to allow you to do so.
Awesome.
And so where we really shine is because of this powerful automation, customers typically onboard onto our platform much faster than any legacy product. A lot of our customers love how intuitive the design is. And they get excited because it means they don't have to have technical engineers on the platform. They can invite other people from the procurement or the management team and they often find that the information in the workflow is very trivial and easy to onboard and get access and become productive very quickly. And the flexibility that I talk about is really what gives customers the comfort that they'll always be able to start with what we have, but grow as their own team requirements evolve.
And I'm sure that means that lots of customers love using Duro then.
Yes, we get lots of customers who just really appreciate how much time they get back and being able to focus on really what they're hired to do, which is to design and manufacture products. Many engineers regret when they come into a team and have these legacy products and they spend most of their day searching for parts or configuring systems or troubleshooting issues because of data transpositions. And so we get glowing reviews from customers like Astra Forge and Gilmore Space, both respectively in the space tech industry, and how they've been able to recoup the subscription costs very efficiently and quickly, allowing them to get their own products into production much faster, allowing them to achieve additional milestones like raising more funding.
Amazing. I think that was a nice synopsis, and I for one am looking forward to seeing how that now looks in practice. So I think, like any good engineering project, Louise, we should start with requirements. I don't know if you want to share your screen and start the demonstration.
I'll share my screen. Okay. Can you see it? All good?
Yes, all good.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start by showing you the requirements and systems portal on the A365 platform. Just one disclaimer in the beginning for everyone to know, we might mention Valispace and requirements and systems portal, but this is actually the same thing, right? So while we're doing this transition, we might use both names, but I'm going to focus on the requirements and systems portal in A365. For those of you who are familiar with the A365 environment, I have here open my A365 workspace, and I can access the requirements and systems portal from this menu here with the different apps. So if I click here, it will actually open the requirements and systems portal as an application on the ecosystem. And I'm going to show you a bit just how to manage your requirements and how to connect them to your designs. So here we have a drone example that we're going to show today. And I'm going to dive into the power system specifications so that we can show the whole connection to all of those systems. One thing that I can do here is if this section or specification doesn't have any requirements yet, I'm going to show you that it's very, very easy to just import from what you have already. So imagine you are one of those companies that manage your requirements in Excel, which is apparently very common. You can have your Excel file something like this, right? So these are the power distribution board requirements. And it's going to be very, very easy for me here to just import those requirements into the tool to get started. So I'm going to select here the power system specification and the specific section I want to upload them to. And give me 1 second. And I'm going to find this document here. And I just need to drag and drop this Excel file. And basically here you can see a preview. So it will preview or show me the preview of the different options that I have. I can map this to different fields. If I click import, it will now import those requirements, and not only the requirements with the identifier and text, but it will also create the parent and children relationships that are needed to kind of trace how these requirements were broken down. So you can see here that now all of these have been created and they are in the system. And you can see that there are a lot of more fields that you can use, like the parents and children that I mentioned. You can have tags, other properties, the quality assessment. So there's a lot of things that you can do here in terms of requirements management. And you can also, of course, trace the changes to the requirements and who has updated them at what time. But I'm going to dive a bit deeper into the power system specification. You can see here that there are two subsections. So there is the battery subsystem and there is the power distribution system. So there are a few requirements for each of those. And one thing is to specify the requirements, but the other thing is to actually specify the different parts of the system design. So one part of the requirements and systems portal is our system design module, where you can actually break down your system or kind of make a hierarchical tree of your system that you're developing. You can see here, if I go down into the power system or the battery, BMS, and the PCBA, that they have different properties that are then used for the verification or for different calculations in your project. You can see here that now these blocks or these subsystems don't have any requirements associated, but I can easily come here to my specification and I can add these requirements to the applicable subsystem that I want them to be associated with. So here I will just associate the battery requirements with the battery subsystem. And once that is done, I can also take the rest of the requirements in the specification and I will associate them with the power distribution board. And what's happening here is that not only are they associated with this subsystem in the requirements and systems portal, but they can also be associated with other systems, right? So for example, they can be propagated to a system like Duro or to a system like A365 to basically track them there. So you can see here that the power distribution board has now all of these requirements here. If I go back to the requirements, I want to show you a few things that we already mentioned in the feature section. And one of them is the parameterization of requirements. You can see here the example of the battery mass shall be between 1 gram and 3 grams. So this is a typical requirement that you would see. One thing that I can do, and I will actually use our AI features, which we call the Vali Assistant, to do this, is I can actually parameterize these requirements. What happens here is that our Vali Assistant will actually identify the values in this requirement. So if you see here, it's starting to identify these kind of values. And now when I save this requirement, these values are not just going to be normal text anymore. So these values are going to be actually parameters that you can reference. You can use them in verifications. You can use them in calculations. And they are dynamic. So whenever I update this value in one place, it will actually propagate and update in all the other places that I have referenced it. So this is one way. And once I've set this up, once I've set up these parametric requirements, I can actually start creating these rules, right? So I mentioned that we have these verification rules that then will basically tell you if your requirements are within specification or not. So you can see here that right now the battery mass is actually 0 grams. We didn't select the battery yet, which means that 0 grams is not bigger than 1 gram, which means that this rule is not verified currently, right? And I can actually see that very clearly from the requirements overview. And I can also get a notification when this changes, right? So whenever a requirement is unverified or is verified, I can get a notification that that has changed. There are also other ways that you can verify requirements. And I'm going to show you one example so that we can see how that works also from a design review perspective. So imagine these requirements about the power distribution of the ESCs. I can actually add here an activity, which is called design review. So this means that I will verify this requirement by design review. You can have several methods or several setups as you want, you can customize this as you want. But this specific one, I want to verify by design review, and you can see that now the status is not set. But I will show you how you can actually set this status by doing an actual design review in Altium 365. Now, I told you that when I link these requirements to the applicable subsystem, you can also start linking them to other systems like Duro and A365. I'll just show you quickly how this works. I have this block, right, the power distribution board. And if I look here on the info, I can see that I've made this type electronics, which means that I can actually link this now to the Altium Designer project that I'm working on. This is already linked before, and you can see already a preview of the actual board that comes from A365. And when I go back here to the Altium 365 projects, if I open this specific board, I can see that there is a requirements panel inside A365. And when I open this panel, I can see all of the requirements that are associated with this specific project, which means that you can associate these requirements from the Requirements and Systems portal to your actual electronics projects. And as a designer, I will be able to see those requirements, I will be able to act on them, and I will even be able to verify them. So if I go here into, imagine I'm working now on the ESC power board, I'm in the schematics document. I can actually go here to that requirement that we were talking about, the part distribution requirement, and I can click on this and I can place this on the design. So if I place this here on the design, I can say this is where this requirement will be implemented. And I can even start tagging people like, Michael, can you check these values? And then I can actually start either commenting or creating tasks around these requirements. So as I mentioned before, you can start having that visibility and you can start working with the requirements even while you're doing your design. The other thing that I can do is if I'm actually have checked these values and say, okay, these are fine, this requirement is now verified, you can see here that there is 0 out of 1 verifications that are done. And I can actually come here and verify that requirement by design review that I set up in the Requirements and Systems portal directly from here. So I don't need to switch tools. I don't need to go to another place to verify this, but I can come directly here and verify that requirement from the design itself. And you can see that now this turned green. And if I go back to the Requirements and Systems portal, to the power specification, I can also see that now this is green here. And again, as I mentioned, if you have then subscribed to this requirement, you can get an update. If you're the owner, you will get a notification that this requirement is now verified. And now I will hand over to Michael to show you how this connection also works in the Duro context.
Awesome. Thank you, Louise. Let me share my window. All right. Okay, so here what I'm showing is a clean new account in Duro. And what I want to exemplify here is just how simple and intuitive it is to get started. So you can start by building your first product, and kind of Wizard will walk you through that effort. And Duro highlights really the main principles of what PLM is for. You're adding or updating content, either manually creating components or using a CAD integration, or importing through spreadsheets. It's very simple to be able to create and update parts of assemblies. And really the crux of PLM is change orders, change control. And so here we have a very powerful but simple change order workflow, which I'll get to in a moment. And so you can easily access that here. And then last, obviously, the information isn't of any value until you can share it with other people. Share it with your suppliers, share it with other team members, share it with contractors, whomever the case may be. A very simple wizard to allow you to customize what your export content is to each of those different parties. So for now, what I want to show you is Duro can pull in those requirements that Louise showed through our Altium integration or even directly through Valispace. And so what that allows you to do is get the additional context of how those requirements are going to be managed. And so whether it's electrical context through Altium 365, or if you have additional Valispace requirements tied to your mechanical or other components, Duro can pull that information in as well. And so here I see I have access to the same account that Louise showed. And so what I'm going to do is once I've connected my Valispace account to my Duro account, when I go to my components space, I can create new content either by uploading a file, using our integration with many parts distributors, obviously create parts manually, or now the Valispace option shows up in my account. So I go ahead and click that, and it's going to navigate to my Valispace account. It's going to show me all the available projects. And so we are just working with the drone. I continue. And now you can see everything shows up. And so I can pull in some or all of the entire assembly here. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to pull in the power system. And here, Duro uses categories to help add additional context of what's being pulled in. And so what that does is, if you're using a category-driven CPN scheme, it helps define what the assigned part number is going to be. But it also allows you to pull out parameterized values and be able to add more context and value. So using parameterized specifications, you can do further searches, you can do comparisons, add more value. And so this battery, I'm gonna make this miscellaneous, and then the PCBA itself, I'm gonna assign it to a printed circuit board assembly. Okay, everything looks good. So now I'm gonna go ahead and import that from Valispace. So just take a moment. And so what it's doing now is it's pulling all the information available in those Valispace elements, and it's creating a bidirectional link back into Valispace. And so depending on where you're coming from, you can easily cross-reference. And so now I'll open up this assembly, and you can see here, it recognized this component was coming from Valispace. It has assigned part numbers. It pulled in the full assembly, each of the subcomponents. And then if you look, there's a cross-reference, so I can open up the link back into Valispace. For easy access. And you can see here, Duro in the info panel will even write back the CPN that it assigned. So it's easily accessible. Again, talking about transparency, everyone being able to see as much information across the different disciplines. All right, and so now what we're going to show you is, so what I've done here basically is create an empty shell. And so as I load information, and we're going to connect Altium to Duro and pull in the PCBA in just a moment, but you can see here what I've done is created this empty shell of a structure, an assembly structure that's tied to Valispace. So as content gets updated in each of these assemblies, the values will get updated, and which will roll back into Valispace and allow me to confirm that as I make changes, I am still consistent with the requirements, or if I violated them, I can be notified immediately. And so I'm going to hand it off to Tom to show you how we import from Altium.
Just need a few seconds here. I'm getting the project open in Altium. Okay, start my screen share. So here we can see the power distribution board in A365, and I'll walk through the process of publishing a release from Altium to Duro. You can go to the project tab here, to the project releaser, and release and publish to Duro. This will go through and utilize the output job files that are defined for the project to generate a series of documents. Now we're creating our release items, and now we'll be saving and committing our changes from the desktop application to the A365 environment. Now we'll be generating the files that are specified in our out job files, which will be part of the release package. Now the generated documents are being uploaded to A365. And after this, they'll be shared from A365 to Duro.
And then am I right in thinking that once this has been released and that connection then is made to Duro, that it's a one and done thing? Or would you need to keep releasing it and keep pushing, keep committing?
As you make updates to your project, you'll want to go through the project releaser process, just as you would with A365. And then at that point, once you've pushed your updates through the release process, the updates will flow from A365 to Duro.
Awesome.
Cool. So now that we've started that, the publish process to Duro runs as a background process. You can monitor it from the task list panel that is down here. We can see that the release is still processing. Means Duro is working through creating the components, creating the parent-children relationships, and associating the release documents with those components.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm seeing that everything has shown up in the Duro account now. And so just to show, can you pull up one of the passive components and show how Duro writes the CPN into Altium?
Yeah, I can. Here we can go to this connector, for example. Do a refresh. And the PLM part number should show up down here. I believe it's likely because the request is still processing. Duro has been updated, but the Altium side still waiting for the response back.
Okay. And so out of the box, Duro can manage, all the different categories that you have set up in your Altium account. Duro again will assign part numbers, revision values, and status, so that it's very easy to communicate across your team using the CPN values that Duro generates. And certainly easy to track it as it goes through change orders. And so to add to your question, Andy, earlier, the first thing you have to do really is just this simple publishing. And so once the project is created in Duro, then as you make updates to your schematic, you can publish them, republish the updates as you wish. And the synchronization can happen either automatically and a set schedule, like every day at 1 a.m., or on demand whenever you need to make these updates. And the nice thing about it is as you make corresponding changes in the Duro platform, all those changes will get backfilled into your Altium account as well.
And are you finding that there's big differences there in the amount of time people use for these automatic updates, whether it's daily or weekly? I guess it's very project specific, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the value, the takeaway here is that you're unconstrained. And so to make these updates and to synchronize the data, it's really just a couple clicks. And so it makes it simple and less laborious for a CAD engineer to be able to push what they're working on, whether it's for a formal release and review process, or just to share, a work in progress, just to be able to communicate with other team members. There isn't a big effort to create these export packages and disseminate the information to the different fields. All right, so and we can come back to Duro and show how everything's got picked up. Okay, let's share my screen. All right. Okay, so now you can see I've refreshed my screen, and now all these components, these passives, have populated into my Duro account. They've all been assigned these part numbers, and now I can go through the power system again. And so you can see here, so now the assembly of the PCBA itself has subassembly, has the PCB, the board itself, it has an EBOM electrical BOM, and all the passives have been added to it underneath. and we can see, let me pull information here, all the ref dust, designators. I gotta drill down one more level. In the PCBA level here, I can see reference designators, quantities, all that information is easily added. And so I can open up, one of these components and see it can add additional sourcing information. So in this case, the electrical engineer had already signed a manufacturing part number for this component in Altium, and Duro picked that up and automatically pulled in all the available sourcing information for that MPN. And so the different manufacturers, the data sheets are now linked, different distributors, different price breaks, and the different pricing options. And so now I have all this at my fingertips, and based on my procurement requirements, whether I need a low volume or a high volume package, I can make a selection. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And one of these large teeth and reels looks good to me. I can further edit the information. And so if, let's say, I'm not purchasing from Mauser, it's not on my AVL, I can remove that. And so no longer accessible. I can add my own additional sourcing information. Let's say I have some preferred pricing, or there's another vendor that's not, doesn't have an API to integrate. I can manually update this information, add anything I want. And so in this case, I'm going to pick this package as my primary. And what's going to happen is once I do that, then it tells the system, hey, this is the specific pricing package distributor that I want to use for the next procurement run. And so you can see here, the information is now populated up here. And so any assembly that uses this capacitor will roll up this pricing and lead time for presentation. Okay. And so now I can go back to my EBOM and here. So let me actually go up one more level to just go back here. And so what I'll show is the battery didn't have a part number picked, which is okay. That's again, the power of this bi-directional syncing is if the double E has a part number, they can enter an Altium and Duro will pull that in. But if they don't, that's not a problem either. So I can go and use a vendor search tool. Let's see if I can, perfect timing, got logged out here. There we go. CR232. So I can go and use my favorite vendor part search tool and pick one that meets my criteria. So in this case, I'll use the classic CoinCell CR2032. And so then now I can easily augment this component with that part information. And now Duro will go confirm it's valid, that can access the information. I got the green light, it's good to go. And here we are. And so now, again, it just pulled in all this information live. So this is accurate pricing and lead time as of today. If this information, was last updated in some duration is longer than I like, I can select a component and say, you know what, go ahead and update, give me a fresh pricing and lead time. And if nothing's changed, which in this case it wouldn't, you'll get these green check marks. But if pricing or lead time has changed, you'll get indication letting you know that you might want to revisit that. Anyway, so now that I've picked a battery, I can look at the data sheet and I can say, well, what is the actual mass? And so I can go back in and I looked at the data sheet earlier and I know that the mass is 2.5 grams for this specific battery. And so as I make this change, remember, I can go back into Valispace and I can see that change take effect immediately. There it is, 2.5. And so now I go to requirements and you can see this is now passing. And so now I feel good that, okay, everything looks good. I'm passing all the requirements that I need to. I can go ahead and create a change order. So go in here, create a change order, and I'm going to pick the PCBA. Go ahead and add, releasing to prototype. Okay, and so another value add from Duro is we know that once you complete a change order, the content often gets sent outside your facility to maybe a contract manufacturer or to suppliers. And so you don't have control of it anymore once it's been quote unquote released. And so what we do is we run through a list of validation requirements just to make sure that everything looks good. There are no errors, there's no inconsistencies or any other validation rules that you've assigned. And so in this case, it's identified, hey, this information, this component is still in design status. You have to promote it to prototype. Looks good. Okay. But now it's telling me that it has children that have not been updated either. So do I want to add those? The answer is yes. Let me go ahead and add those. Okay. And so now all those other components are automatically pulled in. And so I can go ahead and update each of those to meet those criteria as well. Give me one moment. And so as I'm going through here, the system's rechecking to confirm that everything looks good. And I do see a couple of warning messages, which I'll check those in a moment. Oops. All right, and so here it's telling me, hey, you haven't picked a primary source. And so in this case, in my system, I've set that up as a warning, but I could configure it to be an actual error blocking me from moving forward. But this capacitor already has a primary source, which we picked. Oops. And let me go ahead and actually add the battery here as well. Go ahead and hit battery. And you can see, oops. That one's green as well. All right, so now I can add additional approvers. And here it's just a small account, so I can add this team member. And I can pick a couple of different approval types. So first in means the first person to approve or reject the change order will dictate the outcome. And so a lot of customers like this because it still allows for accountability and traceability. There's still a formal record of these changes being made. It allows them to move fast because maybe this change is small enough that they don't need a larger team to get consensus. But we still have those options for unanimous and majority. Similarly, I can add other people to be notified both in my account or maybe just someone who's not, maybe at my supplier. I can add them, and so they'll get an email once the change order has been approved. And then last, I can add any kind of additional content I want. So whether it's assembly instructions, testing instructions, disposition information, all that content can be added to the change order and included in the final package once it's approved. So I'll go ahead, quickly submit for approval. And if I had Slack configured to my account, I'd be getting Slack messages saying that this change order has been submitted. If I have an ERP or MES system, I'll have that. There we go. Go ahead and hit approve. Last, I can just do a double check. So we have a built-in diff tool that allows me to quickly look, spot check each of these components and see exactly what's changed. So empowering me to make an informed decision. I don't have to go chase down or manually, compare information to see what exactly has changed. I have everything provided for me by Duro. So I go ahead and hit approve. It looks good to me. Approve, and then that's it. All right, so the package is being generated, and once it's done, then an email will be sent to all the approvers. There it is, and now it's closed, and as well as anyone in the notification list. And so now I can go back and pick on the battery, and I can see here it's been ratified in prototype. I have a full history of everything that's happened to this component. I can go back to any one of these versions. I can select any versions and again, do another comparison. So again, allows me to see exactly who changed what and when and what the context of that was. And that's it.
Awesome. I mean, I think you got a sense there that I mean, there was so much information there, and we covered so much. We could have gone on for another half an hour, I think, about this connection, and we will send out this recording to everyone to be able to watch it back because I think that there's a lot of things that were inside there that easily could have got a notice. One of the things that I noticed there, I think was very clear, was how instant the data transfer was between Duro and Valispace and the requirements systems portal. I think that was very cool. running out of time, very, very much so. And thanks to all of you for sticking around. Maybe we can answer a few questions. I don't know if Michael and Louise, you have a few minutes.
Yeah, please do.
There is a question that has just come in, and whilst we answer this question, I'm gonna put a poll onto the screen, and if you guys can answer this poll and give us some information and just start to learn a little bit more about you and your own processes. But the question is, can you give us a sense of the time savings we might expect using Altium 365 or the Duro process as compared to using spreadsheets and emails? And I mean, this is kind of a bit of an open question, isn't it? It's how long is a piece of string kind of question, but maybe you can talk about your own experiences here and
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it does provide on context on how big your assembly is. What is involved in your own release process. Do you have to assign NPNs to each component? How much time do you spend pulling in that sourcing information? And so, hopefully, through the demo, you're able to extrapolate on your own exactly what the time savings are. But where we see customers find the most time savings is obviously in the simplicity of exporting and publishing from Altium into Duro. It's instantaneous. So there is no spreadsheets used as a medium to export and import into. If you have assigned manufacturing part numbers to your passive components, Duro, again, can pull in all that live sourcing information, the data sheets, thumbnails, any information. So any time you would have spent manually copying or entering that information into your BOM, that's time saved. And then obviously to be able to communicate and have bidirectional input. So any managers or procurement people can update content in the web client, which can backbuild into Altium. And so any reduction in emails or communication that would have gone outside of a platform like this, you can extrapolate exactly how much time you'd be saving there.
And I would just like to add one thing, which is the more intangible, right? I think the mistakes that you don't make by using this kind of connection, it's really difficult to measure, right? But you know that if you have the data connected and always up to date, then you will do fewer mistakes. So it's really hard to measure, but it's definitely, you can definitely feel it when you start using this kind of system.
So yeah, in a sense, it's difficult to quantify, but the time savings are clearly there. And maybe if you're used to using let's say the sticky notes process, then you're certainly going to feel benefits there, aren't you? There was one more question that did come in as people were registering, that was here about collaboration between teams that exist in different parts of the world. And I know that most of what we talked about here is collaboration and between teams and different disciplines, but maybe you can elaborate on this quickly between you before we then say goodbye.
Sure, I can start from my side. So I think the collaboration between different parts, between different teams, or between different teams in different parts of the world, is really what Altium 365 and Duro as well was built for, right? So it's really a cloud first platform, or they are both cloud first platforms, which means that you can actually access them across different teams, across different parts of the world, and having that central source of data across those sites. So in former Valispace, we had quite a lot of customers that had different company sites. Like some people would sit in Japan, some in the US, and they would collaborate not even within the same company, but also across companies, right? So these kind of web browser-based platforms and cloud-first platforms are really built for that kind of collaboration, I think.
Yeah, I concur with everything that we said. And what we see from our customers is they're encouraged to invite more team members. So it's not just engineers or technical people in their office, but outside suppliers or contract manufacturers, maybe overseas or in different locations around the world. Duro, it's available 24/7, from anywhere with an internet connection. And so anyone from anywhere can log in. And using, modern role-based access control, administrators can feel comfortable that they're giving the right level of access to every person who needs it. So whether it's an administrator or a hardcore user that's in there day in, day out creating content, or maybe it's just a supplier who needs limited access to certain specific information, be able to easily extract what they need to be able to procure and manufacture those designs. Really empowering customers to control the levels that they need. And of course, we use all the standard authentication tools, including Google Auth or SSO, whatever your company requires for authenticating and authorizing users onto the platform.
Awesome. I think that's a comprehensive answer from both of you there. Look, I mean, we're 6 minutes over, and I just want to say a big thanks to all those that are still with us, all those that attended, and to our amazing guests, Tom Sowers and Michael Corr from Duro, and Louise Lindblad from Altium. The recording, as I said, will be sent out to you. If you like me, you enjoyed that demo and you're desperate to learn more about Duro, then I'm sure you can reach out to Michael directly, Michael and the team. And apart from that, I wish you guys a very, very successful rest of the workday and rest of the week. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.